Yeah, thank you, Valentin, for taking a stand for for children's culture, for fathers' culture. I'm I'm sensing a little bit of sadness because I thought this is something that I wished my husband had done when we first had our first daughter.
Hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
So your daughters are 11 and 13, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And you have the luck to be, well, maybe you live in the UK, right? So,
Well, we're actually nomadic now, but this was our base until last December.
okay. So I did some research, and what I found out in regards to schooling, and what I found out is that the UK is one of the few countries in Europe, if not the only one, that is kind of lenient when it comes to the schooling system, meaning that the government does not force the kids to go to school or to do homeschooling. Is that right?
Yeah, so the way the law works here in England is that parents have the responsibility to educate the child. And when a parent enrolls their child into a school, they hand over that responsibility to the school. And for children who are already enrolled in a school, the parents can write to the school and say that they want to take their children out and take back that responsibility. Or the other alternative is you don't send your children to school and you keep that responsibility as your own.
Which is what you've done, right?
Uh, for my second daughter, yes. For my older daughter, she was 1 year at a Steiner kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So Steiner is Waldorf, as some people know it. It's
Yes.
yeah. So she, from the age of 4 to 5, she did 1 year, and then the truth is we actually never planned to home educate. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea about unschooling or any of this, but I knew I wanted something different because I actually at one point in my career I did many different things, but I trained as a primary school teacher and
Okay.
I taught for 1 year in a school. And after that 1 year, I realized that this was not for me. And it was definitely, if I ever had children, it would not be for my children either. And the realization that I had then was but me working in a school was no different to my first corporate job, which was in investment banking. And I really felt like they were the same. And actually, I left banking and found my way to teaching, thinking that this would be the place that I would finally be able to make a difference. But the reality wasn't that at all, because what I could see is I had been at the end result of what the schooling process did. And I just went from the end to the beginning of the process. I could see how it began and what the output was of that system, like what I created. And I didn't like the way it just didn't resonate for me. It didn't, I could see we were trying to create children that would all be able to do the same thing at the same time in the same way. And it wasn't cultivating their uniqueness. It wasn't creating this fertile soil for each child to be who they were. And yeah, it just was not the environment that I wanted to work in. And so that's why I went searching for something else and I found Steiner, Waldorf.
Mm-hmm.
And there were so many beautiful things about it, things that even today I still carry with me, the way that they celebrate the festivals, the art, the music, just that and being in nature, those elements are so precious. But the school that my daughter was at closed down, and we had actually just moved to the area 3 months before that for the school. So there was no way we were going to move again, as many families did, to find another Waldorf school. So we stayed put, and the only alternative was home education for us. There were no other alternative provisions. And it started as we'll just try it out for 1 month and see how it goes. And at the time, and my homeopath, she recommended that I read this book. She had home educated her children, and they were much older. They were, through university and working. And she'd been saying to me for many months, why don't you try home education? And then the school closed, and she said, look, I really think you should give it a go now. And you could read this book. It's called Teach Your Own by John Holt. But she said to me, she said, I'm recommending this book with a warning. You read this book, it will change your life. And that's basically what happened. We read the book and it changed our lives. We realized that everything that John Holt was saying was, his words were so true that we couldn't unknow them. So once you know that truth, it's like, okay, we have to try this now. Like, there's no other option. It was just, we have to give it a go. And so what started as one term turned into, I think, 8 years now, 9 years in. Yeah, that's where we are.
Would you still recommend the book today after all that you went through in terms of holding space for your children's education and learning and unfolding?
Yes, I would. I think it's such a great starting point for anyone who is curious about how children learn, curious that there has to be a different way, and also wants that reassurance. We actually still have the books. We bought a few of his books, and sometimes, because the truth is like I still have these moments where I'm not sure. I doubt the path all the time. Like the doubt creeps in constantly. Are we doing the right thing? Is this what the children need? Do they need more? Am I giving them enough? Am I enough? And when we have these doubts, sometimes I will just pick up the book and read a little bit. It doesn't need much, but you just need sometimes a paragraph or two just to remind you that, this is why we chose the path. This is why we chose this way. Just that reassurance of someone who he just writes it in such simple but very eloquent language that really just lands. It lands right here. And you just, yeah, it's almost like his words are so obvious. Like everything he says is so obvious that you almost think, of course, like how did I not think of this myself? It's that simple. And I think when you're around people who don't necessarily share the same views, it's really important to have resources like this that you can kind of read and get the reassurance from, because for us we did have other home educating families around us, but the truth is, even in home education there is a whole spectrum of ways that you can do it. So you can be extremely structured and recreate school at home, or you can go to the complete other extreme, which is radical unschooling. That's the term that is now out there, and it's really children eat what they want, as much as they want, when they want, they wake up when they want, watch as much TV. Like, it's really this kind of, and I guess it's a lot of trusting the process that children will learn to self-regulate. And I would say that we're not fully at this extreme either. Like we've tried to be a bit more radical unschooling at times, and it didn't work for us. So we came back and realized that we wanted to have some clear boundaries in place. And I'm realizing more and more that, and I learned this actually, so we've been Worldschooling now since December, and we spent some time in Pondicherry and Oroville. And when I was in Pondicherry, I visited the Sri Aurobindo Center of Education. It's a school there. It's actually a school that my mum went to.
Wow. Okay.
So I really wanted to reconnect with her roots. Like I wanted to get a sense of what shaped her to be the person that she was. And going there, like we looked around the school, and it was really just such an incredible space. Like it was so beautiful in so many ways. But the one thing that stayed with me was, as the lady was showing us around, she said, one thing that we really believe here and with one of mother's teachings is that freedom without discipline is not freedom at all. And it just landed with me where I realized like, and there has been times where I have been so unsure about how this path of home education goes, unschooling versus structured learning. How does it go? That there are many days where we've just been getting through the day, like we've just been surviving. And
Mm,
I realize how much time we've wasted purely by this lack of discipline. And I think for me, a better word than discipline would probably be commitment, like this lacking of commitment to something, like without purpose, without intention. And so what I'm seeing is that children really thrive, and I can see it now with mine, like bringing in something that they're committed to, bringing in something that we want to go to 3 times a week or 4 times a week. It gives them something that they can grab onto and then grow and develop and create. And I don't know if it's the same for all children. I'm just speaking from mine because I know, different children learn in different ways, but I think I have really been exploring, like I've wanted, like, do we need structure? I don't want to give them too much structure, not too much instruction, because I've also been listening to the work of, and I've also been and visited Janan, who is a researcher of education in India. So we were also at a workshop with him in December before we went to Oroville. And that was also wonderful. It was a revillaging workshop. We were 10 days with 10 families together. And it was very much a free space where children were able to create on their own. And, us adults were really in the space of how can we just be observers? How can we shift from interfering in children's learning to observing? But as I was speaking to Janan, these children are much younger. And when my children were younger, they could just be like that. But now as they're getting older, they need more. They need more input. And I alone am not enough. And that's also been one of my struggles with home education here in England, is that we live in very, nuclear families. So we're quite isolated.
mm-hmm,
So finding this richness that home education unschooling needs, where you've got a variety of adults, children available all the time, so children's culture can really exist, is very difficult to create when you're constantly having to drive to places and figure out meal, like, just take care of all the logistical things as well as creating the space for it to unfold. So that's been the challenge here, doing it in isolation. And so a lot of the time, what I've had to do, and this has been my growth, because for a long time I really thought, oh, they're going to figure things out on their own. But the part that was missing is that they will learn on their own from observation, but who are they observing?
mm-hmm,
If it's just me that's being the role model, it's limited, because, what I was doing was just taking care of household things. And, what I was lacking was more meaning in my life, because and this comes down to maybe this bigger conversation that we've all been having is, the role of the mother, where she's taking care of like all the logistical things, cooking, cleaning, emotional space holding, planning play dates, all of that. So, you're on your phone planning that, stirring dinner, making sure it's all ready to pack a picnic to take. And you kind of that's what they're observing. But the space to actually do something that I want is limited, because I'm trying to take care of my children, so to speak. And
mm-hmm,
so that having the village is where, if we're all sharing this, then everyone has space to create what they want to, bring their passions to life. And I think that's the bit children, I think all children need it, but especially when you're home educating or unschooling, like having this access to people who do what they love, living a life that they love, whether they're singing or dancing or acting or cooking, but they're doing it because they love doing it. It's what their archetypal being wants to bring into the world. And that's what I want more of for my children. And that's a big part of my quest, is where can I find these people who are so passionate about what they do, that my children can witness it's not necessarily what they're doing, it's the passion that I want them to get. Like I want them to see what it's like to be so committed to a craft or so committed to whatever it is that they're doing. Because that's the bit that I think children need is commitment, is how to to do something and stick to it. Because one thing, I mean, I see with my children is they learn singing, and we've had a real journey with that. They love singing lessons, they love going to lessons, but they went through this phase where they didn't want to practice. And really the magic happens in the practice. Without practice, they weren't progressing enough. And I mean, now they're definitely, there's been a shift in them. But what I can see is that, I'm not doing that because I haven't got a craft that I love doing. And I sit down and say, right, today I'm going to do 1 hour of sketching because I love sketching. And that's on me. Like I haven't made the time for that. But also because of this, what's been going on for me is just this sense of I'm a mother trying to do everything on my own most of the time while my husband's out at work earning the money. And I feel like so maxed out that taking time out to do something that I love is not been so easy. And part of that is really, really wanting someone to just share the logistical burden with. Like, you know, cooking meals together, shopping together, different people taking care. And so then it's not all on just me.
Mm-hmm.
And actually that is a thing with home education, is that we can try to be everything for our children, but it's really impossible as a mum. And one thing that I saw, which is really amazing. So my husband, Christian, his cousin in Kenya, they also home educate their children. They're a lot more structured than we are. But what I see, which really touched me, we were just in Kenya before we came here, is the way they've set it up is her husband works in the afternoon and she works in the morning. So in the morning, while she's at work, he does things with the children. And then she comes home from work, takes over with the children, and then he goes to work in the afternoon. But what I see is that neither of them is burnt out because they're both doing the jobs. Neither of them have had to give something up. They're doing what they love doing. And then from that space, they have so much energy and love to pour into the children. And I think that's one thing that Christian and I didn't do. It was we divided the roles in a very different way. He went out, earned the money, and I was at home taking care of the children. But actually it was not balanced because what came up for me was very much like, well, I gave up everything to do this. And so yeah, that's kind of where we are now in our journey, is how can we bring that balance back so I also have space to do things outside of just this family unit, but also just things that we.
What do you feel now?
I feel glad. I feel glad that this is where we're at now. It's been a journey. And yeah, I think also what I feel glad about is I can see the magic in what other people are doing and learn from it. Well, before I used to go into a lot of comparison. So I would always feel like they're doing it better than me. I'm failing. Like that was the narrative that was happening. But this time when I saw them, it was like such a shift where I could say, hey, look at what they're doing. What can I learn from that? And I love that shift that's happened in me. Yeah, I feel glad about it. Thanks for asking.
And you said you tried out this radical unschooling, I think you called it, or radical something, where really the child just does whatever it wants. And you went back to it. You said it didn't work for you so much. Will you share a little bit more what about it didn't work in your experience?
Hmm. So I think it was many things. So one of them was food. So I have I have a very interesting relationship with food. I feel very committed to eating healthy, and the effects of what we eat physically to how it affects all five bodies. And I really see a connection between that. So that's been a huge part of my research since my children, since I was pregnant, really, or even before that. So just how does food affect us? And so for many years, I I was making everything from scratch. We bought whole foods only, and everything would be homemade. Like, yeah, I would not have anything processed that was made outside the home.
Mm-hmm.
And that became quite exhausting after a while, like to keep doing that and then, carrying your food with you everywhere you go and, being so uptight about it. Like really this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. Like, my box was so strong about these things. And then I just, I went through this process of just relaxing and saying, well, okay, whatever, we'll just eat whatever. And we brought things back into our diet. I was, suddenly, I mean, we've always been plant-based. My children have never had dairy. And I never ever bought this vegan, like any of these vegan processed things. But then I was like, okay, we'll just have vegan cheese from the supermarket. Who cares what's in it? Like, I tried that out for a while. But
That
I
was
just
during the radical unschooling.
yeah,
Okay.
because the process was that I didn't want to be so controlling over what my children were eating. So it was really like, okay, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to say, okay, whatever you want to eat, like let me, you can eat what you want. And then we were also, okay, we're not going to enforce a bedtime and we're not going to enforce that you have to do your singing practice, like because this is one thing that they're really committed, like it's been a core thing in their home education. They've been singing since Neerti was 4, so 7 years now. They've both been learning to sing, and it's a Hindustani vocal, so it's like an Indian classical music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a strong discipline. And we were like, okay, you don't have to practice, and really stepping back. And if they said that they didn't want to go to their class, like they used to go to forest, but they say they don't want to go, it's like, okay, you don't go. You get to decide when you go, when you don't go. Like really, just letting them have complete say over their life. And what I got was that we started to create a lot of chaos, is the truth, because there was no clear bedtime. So they were tired, but also what it didn't create is it didn't give me space when I needed it. So before, if we had a very clear bedtime, then once they'd gone to bed, I had like 1 hour or an hour and a half to decompress myself, just to have time for me without children being awake, time for me and my husband to have a conversation. But we lost a lot of that. And also with the food, I noticed like when we were eating not as clean or as healthy or as mindfully, that was also affecting, like we were a bit more on edge or we weren't as satisfied, or the children were a bit more, they also started coming up in more rashes. My daughter got eczema. So then there was this other layer of stress, like her body was clearly not able to process the foods that she was eating. And I didn't want to be that control. So it really was like, okay, so I got the message very clear that, and then, not practicing. So, they were going to their classes, but not really progressing in any way. So it was just going to the class for the sake of going to the class, but there was no real development in that. And missing things and, agreeing to meet friends and then saying, okay, now we changed our mind, we don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
But then we weren't seeing people. And so I realized like we were missing out on seeing friends. We weren't eating well. We were all feeling like we were feeling tired, and it just wasn't working. And we tried it out. And so the realization was that, okay, we need to bring some kind of structure back. We need to have something where this is bedtime. And we do have juice, and we are going to be more careful about what we eat. We're going back to eating healthier and making things at home, but how can we shift that? And it was more about, okay, let's all get involved and make things together. And it doesn't happen all the time. My children aren't always involved in the cooking, but there are times where they are. And it is really fun when we do it together. And so that's also what I'm noticing is how can I involve them more in the things that I care about rather than doing it for them?
Mm-hmm.
Because then it's like I'm doing it for you, and then also that the stress and the resentment and the pressure, it comes onto me. And this is also, it's happening because they're getting older. So they're more able, they're more willing. So it's also to do with age, is my sense. but yeah, for us, radical unschooling was just too much. Also, another thing that I became relaxed about was sweets. And so they were eating loads of sweets, and my daughter started getting cavities in her teeth. And so all of these little things where I was just like, okay, I'm not willing to compromise your health, and you do not have enough. It was too much responsibility for a child, is
Mm-hmm.
what I got. It was way too much.
Mm-hmm.
So we tried it for a while, and very quickly I was like, okay, we need to shut this down. Like you can have sweets, but only this many and not all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
only these sweets, like not, and yeah, and that's just it. Like children, I think what I've discovered is that children need boundaries. They need to know where it's safe up to.
Mm-hmm.
They're constantly searching for that boundary. And so what was happening when I said you can eat whatever you want, they just kept eating the sweets, the sweets, the sweets, the sweets, or the chocolates or the biscuits or whatever it was, but the sugar. And I think they would keep eating it until they were waiting for me to say no. They were waiting to hit the
Mm-hmm.
boundary, but it never came. And so then it was just like, well, how do I know? How do I know when? And yes, your body can tell you, but things like that, I think, are also designed to be addictive. So
Mm-hmm.
it can, it's really helping them to get that yes, your body will tell you, but also some things are designed for you to keep wanting more, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily good for you. And screens, that was another thing. Like I was very strict about screens, and then I said, okay, you can have as much screen time as you want. And what I noticed is that days were going by where they were just being on their screens watching YouTube videos or whatever they were doing. And I was like, okay, this is not working. This is
Mm-hmm.
also another boundary. So we had to set a very clear boundary about how much screen time a day. And now the shift, rather than how much time, we've shifted to what are your screens for? Like that's the conversation that we keep having.
Okay.
And so it's like, okay, your screen is for research. So you want to learn how to do this. My daughter's really into embroidery right now. So it's like, okay, how do you do this knot? So she looks it up on YouTube, or how to crochet something. And for that, I don't want to limit how much time, because coming back to that other conversation, like what we were saying earlier, is that we don't have a village. I don't have, grandmother sitting there crocheting all the time next to her. So sadly, we've replaced that with screens. And,
Mm-hmm.
a big part of my research is to shift that. I want us to be with more people in person so that my children can learn crochet, I mean, and their grandmother does crochet, but we don't live near each other. They're in Kenya, and we're now traveling, but that's where her passion for crochet came from, just watching her grandmother. So, that's what they need. They need more adults like that around them to just inspire them. And that's what I want. But yeah, these are the kind of things that we've discovered with being too radical unschooling. Like it wasn't for us. Yeah.
And I mean, you've tried many different things, from what I'm hearing. And what have you found? What really works when it comes to really their unfolding and their learning? What have you found that, whoa, like this really works?
Hmm. One, I think the first thing that's the most important is feelings, like giving children space to feel. It's been so important. Like my older daughter is, I mean, they both are to an extent, but my older daughter is extreme, like this sense of it's got to be perfect. And I remember when she was little, she would try to write something. And if the letter didn't look perfect, she would be really angry. She'd scrub it out, she'd rip up the paper, and it would just never be good enough. And when, before I discovered feelings work, we would always be like, it's okay, just do it again, like try and, calm her down
Mm-hmm.
to make her do it again. And after I discovered feelings work, and even just using a simple completion loop and just saying, yeah, you think that was terrible, or that was terrible, wasn't it? Just giving her that space and holding space for her to feel the sadness, the anger that comes with it has been magic, because the minute she goes, like she is allowed to go through all of that, then she comes back with it, and it's like she does it even better than she imagined that she could. But
Wow.
it's been so incredible to just see that when they're able to feel, they come to it from a different space. It's really, I've
Mm.
seen it a few times in her work, because she also loves to make things with her hands. And so right now she's doing a lot of modeling with like this clay, modeling clay, and she's making 3D figurines and things. And I can just see that it's so different to how she used to be before. Before, if she made a mistake, it would be the end of the world, and we tried to pacify her. And now it's like she makes a mistake and she can just be like, okay, just going to start again. And she just keeps going. And so the feelings work for me has made the biggest shift. The other thing has been really shifting away from this idea that I had that as a home educating mother, I had to be everything for my children. So I really thought that if I want them, if I want to introduce them to knitting, I had to be the one, I had to learn how to knit first so that I could teach them. If I wanted them to do pottery work, I had to learn how to do pottery to teach them. And that for me was so exhausting. And I kept feeling like I was failing, like I didn't have enough skills and I was just so terrible. And I had to go through the process to say, actually, this is a really good singing teacher, or this is a really good art teacher, and I'm going to enlist them to do classes with my children. And I realized that because of the culture that I'm living in right now, the only way to create that, because I don't have this organic village where it's just happening and it already exists, that money was money was the resource to exchange right now. And so I just have to pay teachers. And I dream of a time where there isn't that. Like there is just this, children have access to these skilled professionals all the time, within walking distance. And it's just, every village has that. But right now it isn't. So, but that's been one thing that's really worked is finding teachers that are really resonant with our philosophy and with the children and checking. So, we always now we meet the teachers and we try it out. And if it doesn't work, I'm being okay with saying, okay, this teacher doesn't work, we'll find someone else, and just be okay to keep shifting and changing until you find the person that really connects. But I think that is important, is just this process of me being able to let go and say that my children can learn from other people. Like there are other people out there that can teach them, and being able to trust them with that. And again, I think it comes back to feelings work, because what I know is that, if anything happened between them and the teacher that where my children felt unsafe, I've created this space now where they can come and speak to me and say, this happened at the lesson today, this is how I felt, and share
Wow.
that with me. And that's what I want, because I can't shelter them forever from the world out there. But what I want is that if something happens or they have an interaction that makes them feel something, that they can express it. Like that for me is the key. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else. One other thing, which is what I said earlier, is what we're working on, is really that as parents, if there is a mother and father both doing it together, then it's really how to create an equality in that relationship. Like, and it's not, I'm not talking about dividing the roles. I think the equality is that there has to be space for both of those people to also be themselves, not just the mother, not just the father, but really who are you? And to bring that into the space as well, because I think children need that. I think the children, they are observing, they're watching everything that we do. I realize my children have learned not from what I say, but everything that I do, the way I act, the way I stand, the way I maneuver. Those are the things, and energetically, that they're reading me energetically all the time. And so I think that's just it. Like when I'm doing things that I love doing, they want to come and be with me. I'm more magnetic to them when I'm doing what I love. But when I'm doing things that I don't want to be doing, like if I'm cooking, but I'm doing it because I have to and I'm really angry about it, they will stay away from me. They won't come anywhere near me. So yeah, those are the things I'm trying to think. And other children. Children need to just have other children without any agenda, like really with adults who are just willing to just make sure that there's food and drinks available, and creating adults culture so the children can get on with what they want to do. And so that is essential. Children just have other children to just free play and create, and different ages. The magic is really in the different ages too.
Okay.
Hmm.
Will you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, because what I've noticed, so I have two sisters and they both have two daughters each. So there's like
Okay.
we're a gang of six. And then Christian's sister also has two children. She has a boy and a girl, but they range from the age of 3 and Nivi's 13. And when they are together, the eight of them, it's really beautiful. And this week we had a birthday party, my daughter's birthday party
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday. And then Nivi's birthday, my older daughter on Monday, and then my other daughter tomorrow. And so it's been this week of celebration with friends and cousins. And so we've had, because some of Nivi's friends are a bit older, so we had 14 all the way down to 3. That's been the age range at different times. And at the birthday party, what we did is we always have a crafting activity. And this year we did block printing on tea towels. And it was really magical just to see all these children sitting on the floor, all different ages, block printing, talking to each other, different friendships forming, because they don't all necessarily know each other all the time. They just come together once a year at this party, but how they were all interacting and, 10-year-old with a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old. And it was just so beautiful, helping each other and just yeah, weaving children's culture. They did not need the adults at all. Like we were
Wow.
not involved. The children were taking care of it themselves. And actually what was happening was some adults decided they also wanted to block print. So adults got theirs out. So we had some adults in there also printing, but they were doing their own work. They were doing their own, and each child had their own. And some children were pairing up and doing it together. So we had one girl who was 13 with a 5-year-old, and the two of them were block printing one together. And it was just magic to just see them collaborating like this. And all I did is just demonstrated once, put out the paints, put out the blocks, and then I left them to it. And that was all they needed. It was 5 minutes of me talking, and the rest was them 3 hours of just block printing.
Wow.
And and
Okay.
and and after that, actually, the magic was in the real magic was in the clearing up, because we used yoga mats underneath and they had paint on them. So the adults started clearing up and we were figuring out how to get the paint off. And we realized that soapy water with a soft toothbrush was working really well. And so we started, and slowly children started coming. And then before you knew it, there were 6 children scrubbing the mat, and all the adults had left. And the children cleaned, it took them 2 hours and they scrubbed every single mat clean.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really, it was amazing.
And I I heard you talk about, I'm not sure if it's Janan, with this specific teaching style of like really not in a way like correct, you will tell it in a minute, but not really affirming. So whenever a child reads a street sign but would pronounce it wrongly or something like this, you wouldn't correct, you wouldn't say no, like that's how you spell it or that's how you pronounce it. Is that Janan's work?
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
have you used it in holding space for your children? And if so, like what has been your experience with that?
Hmm. Yeah, so my younger daughter, I would say if she was in school, she would have probably been labeled as dyslexic.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes if she reads something, I'm trying to think of something. Okay, I have a tin here. I don't know if you can see it. It says ver mince, but
Mm-hmm.
she might read mince ver. Like
Okay.
she would,
Wow.
she mix things up. So if it says 13, sometimes she would say, oh, it's 31. And
Yeah.
so I noticed that she mixes these numbers up. And I noticed it for a long time. And I decided not to say anything. So I would just let her. So she would, when she's writing, she sometimes does her D and her B the other way round. And yeah, I decided just to let it be. Like I'm observing it, I'm aware it's there, and I will see like how is it affecting. But what I'm noticing is that slowly it's not happening as much. It's she's somehow figuring it out for herself. And my daughter, but my younger daughter's now 11 and she can read, but I never taught her how to read. She just taught herself. And the same with my older daughter. She also taught herself to read. Like we never taught either of them. We just read to them when they were younger. We would read stories sometimes, but a lot, we just left them to it. And we just made sure that we had books around. We have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
books in the house, but that's it. And they both taught themselves. But neither of them are so interested in reading so much. They can read and they're not as much. But what I see, and recently we've started an abacus class, which is, I don't know if you've heard of the Soroban abacus. It's a Japanese abacus, and it's using the abacus to work with numbers, to understand numbers. And we tried it a few years ago, and it didn't work for Nia, my younger daughter, so much. But now, 2 years later, and I mean, she loves it so much that she's been basically doing, as soon as the teacher gives the homework, she does it straight away, and then she's like, I finished. Like she loves it that much. I'm really amazed. But what I've noticed is that now when she's writing numbers, she's not writing them flipped anymore.
Yeah.
She's starting to write them. So what I'm noticing is that, school is so quick to intervene. Like the
Mm-hmm.
system is so quick. Oh my God, she's reading things the wrong way. Like there's this panic of we need to fix it now. And what I've discovered with this Janan's way, which is just to sit back and just observe. And what I get from what he says is like, yes, you're observing the child, but there's another layer of observation that has to happen, which is you observe yourself. I observe my child reads this the wrong way. And then at the same time, I observe what is happening in me, like what stories are coming up. Oh my God, she can't, she's going to fail, or I need to fix it. Something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the doorway for us parents. Like, what is this our need to fix it? Because what I'm finding is that there's the system or school or wherever it is has this one way of like, okay, this is what you need to do if this is this is it. But actually she somehow has figured it out, and her brain has wired in a different way. I have no idea what it is, but I just left her to figure it out, and slowly I can see that she's starting to do it. Like she's able to write her D's and her B's the right way round now without any interference. So yeah, we just step back and we just let it be. And what I see is that her power of observation is developing. So before, where she was probably, and now actually I'm getting it as I speak to you, because Nia came into this world very fast. So when I was giving birth, she was really rushing. Like she was after her due date, but during labor, it was like this real urgency to get out, and it was a very fast labor. And she's pretty much like that in life. Like she wants to rush. Like, we went to, both my children did a craft workshop in Oroville, a 1 week endangered craft magam. And they had 28 different crafts. And on the first day, Nia had probably tried like all of them out, while Nivi had chosen one and for 5 days did the same thing. Like that's how they are. And so Nia is very fast. And so what I can see is that because she's so fast, she's not noticing so much necessarily. And she just wants to like be done quickly. And I see that in her a lot. She wants to be done quickly. But what I'm seeing is that as she's getting older, her power of like she's slowing down. She's not as rushing as she was. I mean, before she wouldn't even walk from one room to the other. She would just run, like, just constantly running from one space to the other. And now, as she's getting older, she's slowing down. And I can see that actually that also could be, and I don't want to create stories as well, but what I'm seeing is that this change is happening in her, and there was nothing to fix because it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
broken to start with. And I think that's really what this journey is about, is realizing that our children are not broken and need to be fixed. And it starts actually from labor. I remember when I was pregnant with my daughters, and the first impulse was I want to have a home birth. When I found out I was pregnant with Nivi, I said, I want to have a home birth because there's nothing wrong with her. Like, there's nothing wrong with her. There's nothing wrong with me. Like, being being pregnant is natural. It's like, my body's made for birthing. This is what I'm made for. So why would I go to a hospital which is for sick people? I'm not sick. Being pregnant is not an illness.
Mm,
And I think that's where the trust began. And then when I saw my daughter, I thought, wow, she's so perfect. How could anything, how could nature create anything less than perfect? Like they would have everything, like she would be born with everything she needed. So we decided not to vaccinate. And that was also a big step because we were all vaccinated. We came from that, but I just couldn't imagine like how would nature let a baby be born with less vitamin K than it needed? Like that just didn't
mm,
make sense to me. Did it?
mm-hmm,
I couldn't get my head around it. And I think that's just it. If we have this belief that nature has designed us so perfectly, then maybe there is this way of, you know, that it's just different times. And I mean, I know that there's some extreme cases, but and there are other things, and I haven't had to experience those, like things like autism and things like that. But that was really that was my view on my children at that time when they were born, and I've tried to carry that through, and also just this sense that our body has this natural ability to heal it. It wants to be healthy. So how can we just support it to be healthy rather than trying to fix it? And it feels like it comes from two different ways. And I can see that that was heavily linked to the learning as well. Like children, they naturally want to learn. They're so curious, like that thirst for knowledge is just there. So I don't really need to teach them anything. I just need to make sure they have access to information,
mm-hmm.
access to what they want to learn. And that really is my role.
I have two last questions.
Hmm.
And one is quick. I'll ask it now. But when it comes to resources, so you mentioned a few things already, like I forgot the name, but I have it on recording, right? The book in the beginning and the from the man. Would you recommend any other resources for me and for other people that are really like sort of at their beginning with figuring out how to hold space for children and especially their children's unfolding and learning?
Well, so the book was Teach Your Own by John Holt, and he's written many other books too. Um, and I would also really recommend an Expand the Box training. I
Mm.
honestly, after my first Expand the Box training, the realization that came was this is the parenting manual that I never got. Like
Wow.
I wish I'd had that when I became a mother. I think my journey would have been so different.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and Expand the Box. What else? Conscious Feelings, the book by Clinton Callahan. That is for me, all these other things are really great, like having people, but if we as adults, as parents, don't do the work on ourselves, if we don't start feeling, we can't really hold space for a lasting children's culture. I
Mm.
was trying to do it before I discovered feelings work, and what I noticed is I could do it for a while and then I would fall back. I'd do it for a while, then I would fall back because I was pushing against what was already there. Like I wasn't really healing, I was pretending. And the difference has been like when I now allow myself to consciously feel every every time I do that, I heal something inside me that creates an even bigger container to hold space for my children.
Mm.
And so that would be it. Like the resource I would say is conscious feelings work, Rage Club. It's so important for every parent to, because another thing, and I'm I'm not sure if this has already been done or spoken about, but especially for mothers, and I mean maybe fathers have it too. I haven't had this conversation with my partner, so I don't know, but there's this huge grief of this shift that happens from maiden to mother. And I'm not sure how many of us mothers actually grieved that change that happened, like really saying goodbye to that version of ourselves before we went through labor, before we gave birth, because it's a big initiation. And now as I'm speaking to you, I almost feel like I wonder if part of that ceremony would also be to maybe bury your placenta
Mm-hmm.
and really give it back to the earth, and bury it as the part of you that changed. And
Sounds like
yeah,
you have a job.
yeah, it just came. I don't know where that came from, but it's just suddenly it so feels really, and it's something that's been really alive for me recently. Is just that there was a big grief with this shift, and I've done work on it, but yeah.
By job, I mean like you holding space for for this transition for other women.
Mm, yes, maybe. Yeah. And I think Raging Mothers was a bit of that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been on hold for a while because me and the other mothers, we've also been going through our own processes, but maybe it's time to come back. And yeah, thank you, Valentin. I will be with that job for now.
I
Yeah.
think you've answered my last question already. I would have asked some, I don't even want to say you've answered it now. And for now, if you have anything you want to say at the end, please do so. Otherwise, thank you very much because it was really rich already. So do you have something to say at the end about anything at all?
No, I feel complete. I
Um,